In the shadowy corridors of power where secrets are currency and loyalty is tested daily, one phone call changed everything. Detective Inspector Sarah Matthews had investigated thefts, murders, and conspiracies, but nothing had prepared her for the message that arrived on that cold February morning in 2024. The caller's voice was steady, professional, yet carried an undertone of urgency that made her blood run cold. Inspector Matthews, this is Commander Harrison from Royal Protection. We have a situation that requires your immediate and absolute discretion. The crown jewels of the late Queen Elizabeth II are missing, and we have reason to believe they're aboard a private aircraft registered to someone very close to the current royal family. The line went quiet for a moment before Harrison continued. The jet belongs to Tom Parker Bowles, son of Queen Camilla. This investigation must remain completely confidential. The stability of the monarchy itself may depend on how we handle this matter. As Sarah stared out her office window at the gray London sky, she realized she was about to embark on the most dangerous and politically sensitive case of her career. Royal intrigue, missing treasures worth hundreds of millions of pounds, and investigation that could topple the very foundations of the British crown. This wasn't just about recovering stolen jewels. This was about protecting the future of the royal family itself. The clock was ticking, and with every passing hour, the trail grew colder. What Sarah would discover in the coming days would challenge everything she thought she knew about duty, loyalty, and the price of keeping royal secrets. Detective Inspector Sarah Matthews arrived at the secure briefing room in Scotland Yard at precisely 7 in the morning. The corridors were unusually quiet, and she noticed that her usual security pass had been temporarily upgraded to access areas she had never seen before. Commander Harrison was waiting for her, along with 2 other individuals she didn't recognize, a woman in an expensive navy suit and a tall man with the bearing of former military. Inspector Matthews, Harrison began without preamble. Let me introduce you to Lady Victoria Ashworth from the royal household, and Major James Whitfield from the Special Investigation Branch. What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room under any circumstances. Sarah took a seat at the polished conference table, her notebook ready. She had been a detective for 15 years, but the gravity in the room was unlike anything she had experienced. The weight of royal protocol and centuries of tradition seemed to press down on everyone present. Lady Ashworth cleared her throat and began speaking in crisp, measured tones. 3 days ago, during a routine inventory of the crown jewels of the Tower of London, several pieces were discovered to be missing. Not replicas or minor items, Inspector, but some of the most significant pieces in the collection. She slid a folder across the table. Sarah opened it to find photographs of stunning jewelry pieces, emerald tiaras, diamond necklaces, and ornate brooches that sparkled even in the formal catalog photos. The Queen Mother's emerald tiara, valued at £12 million, Lady Ashworth continued, pointing to each photograph. The diamond Riviere necklace, worth £8 million, and the Duchess of Cambridge brooch, approximately £4 million. These items were specifically requested by the late Queen to be preserved for future generations. Major Whitfield leaned forward, his voice low and serious. The theft was executed with surgical precision. No alarms were triggered, no security cameras showed any unauthorized access, and all the usual suspects have solid alibis. This was an inside job, Inspector, carried out by someone with intimate knowledge of the tower's security protocols. Sarah studied the photographs, her mind already working through the implications. Were they last verified to be in place? 2 weeks ago, Harrison replied. The next scheduled inventory wasn't due for another month. If not for a visiting dignitary requesting to see specific pieces, we might not have discovered the theft for weeks. Lady Ashworth's expression grew even more grave. Inspector, what makes this situation particularly delicate is where our investigation has led us. Through banking records, flight manifests, and communication intercepts, we've traced suspicious activity to a private jet registered under the name of Tom Parker Bowles. The room fell silent. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's son from her first marriage, a food writer and television personality who had always maintained a relatively low profile compared to other members of the royal family. You're suggesting that the queen consort's son is involved in stealing the crown jewels? Sarah asked carefully. Major Whitfield nodded grimly. The evidence is circumstantial, but compelling. 3 days before the theft was discovered, Parker Bowles' jet made an unscheduled flight to Geneva. The flight plan was filed at the last minute, and there's no record of him being a passenger. The jet returned to London the following day. Moreover, Lady Ashworth added, opening another file, financial records show several unusual transactions and accounts linked to Parker Bowles in the weeks leading up to the theft. Large cash withdrawals, payments to security consultants, and deposits from untraceable offshore accounts. Sarah absorbed this information, her detective instincts warring with disbelief. What's his motive? Why would someone with his connections and resources risk everything to steal royal jewels? Commander Harrison exchanged glances with the others before responding. That's what we need you to find out, Inspector. But we suspect it may be connected to gambling debts. Parker Bowles has been known to frequent high-stakes poker games in Monaco and Las Vegas. Intelligence suggests he may owe significant amounts to some very dangerous people. The implications were staggering. Sarah realized she wasn't just investigating a theft. She was potentially uncovering a scandal that could devastate the royal family. Queen Camilla's son stealing from the crown to pay gambling debts will be a public relations disaster of unprecedented proportions. What's my cover? Sarah asked, her professional training taking over despite the shocking nature of the case. Officially, you're conducting a routine security review of royal transport arrangements, Major Whitfield explained. You'll have full access to examine Parker Bowles' jet and question anyone connected to it. Lady Ashworth will provide you with royal credentials that will open any door you need opened. Lady Ashworth slid a leather document case across the table. Inside you'll find her temporary royal warrant, authorization codes, and contact information for assets within the royal household who can assist you discreetly. Remember, Inspector, the fewer people who know the true nature of this investigation, the better. Sarah opened the case and examined the official documents. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. What about Parker Bowles himself? Do I have authorization to question him directly? That's where things become complicated, Harrison admitted. Any direct approach to Parker Bowles could trigger a security alert within the royal household. We can't risk word of this investigation reaching Queen Camilla or other senior royals until we know exactly what we're dealing with. For now, Lady Ashworth continued, your investigation must focus on the jet, the crew, and anyone else who had access to it during the critical time period. Build your case methodically, and when you have sufficient evidence, we'll determine the best approach for confronting Parker Bowles directly. Major Whitfield opened his briefcase and withdrew a tablet computer. This contains everything we know about Parker Bowles' activities over the past month. Flight records, financial transactions, social media posts, even restaurant reservations. Study it carefully. There may be patterns you can spot that we've missed. Sarah scrolled through the information, noting the meticulous detail of the surveillance. Parker Bowles seemed to live a typical celebrity lifestyle, book launches, restaurant openings, charity events. But buried among the routine activities were anomalies that caught her attention. He's been to several meetings with art dealers, she observed, and there are multiple visits to auction houses in London and Paris. We noticed that too, Lady Ashworth said. It's possible he was researching the value of the stolen pieces, or perhaps seeking buyers for them. The meeting continued for another hour, with Sarah receiving detailed briefings on royal security protocols, the history of the crown jewels, and the political implications of the investigation. By the time she left Scotland Yard, she felt like she was carrying the weight of the monarchy on her shoulders. Her first stop was the private airfield where Parker Bowles' jet was hangared. The facility was discreet and expensive, catering to wealthy individuals who valued privacy above all else. Sarah presented her credentials to the facility manager, a nervous man named Robert Chun who seemed intimidated by the royal warrant. "Of course, Inspector," Chun stammered, leading her toward the hangar. "Mr. Parker Bowles' aircraft is one of our most well-maintained. Regular inspections, professional crew, everything completely above board." The jet was impressive, a sleek Gulfstream G650 with a pristine white exterior and elegant interior appointments. Sarah began her examination with the cargo hold, looking for any signs of unusual activity. The space was clean and well-organized, but she noticed scratches on the floor that suggested heavy items had been moved recently. "Mr. Chun," she called out, "who has access to load cargo onto this aircraft?" "Only authorized ground crew and Mr. Parker Bowles' personal assistant," Chun replied. "We maintain very strict security protocols here." Sarah made notes in her notebook, photographing the scratches and any other potential evidence. She continued her examination of the passenger cabin, paying particular attention to any hidden compartments or modifications that might have been made to conceal stolen items. The pilot's logbook revealed the flight to Geneva that Major Whitfield had mentioned, but the passenger manifest listed only private party without specific names. Sarah made a mental note to track down the flight crew for individual interviews. As she worked, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The investigation was supposed to be secret, but in her experience, royal secrets rarely stayed secret for long. Someone somewhere was probably already aware that the crown jewels were missing and that an investigation was underway. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Be careful who you trust. Not everything is as it seems. A friend." Sarah stared at the message, her pulse quickening. Someone was monitoring her investigation already, but were they trying to help or hinder her efforts? In a case involving the royal family, allies, and enemies were often indistinguishable until it was too late. She deleted the message and continued her examination of the aircraft, but the warning echoed in her mind. This case was going to test every skill she had developed as a detective, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The future of the monarchy itself might depend on her ability to uncover the truth while navigating the treacherous waters of royal politics. The afternoon sun was beginning to set as Sarah completed her initial examination of the jet. She had collected several pieces of potential evidence and identified multiple leads to pursue. Tomorrow, she would begin interviewing the flight crew and ground staff, each conversation bringing her closer to the truth about what had really happened to the late Queen's crown jewels. But first, she needed to understand more about Tom Parker Bowles himself. What kind of man was he? What pressures was he under? And, most importantly, was he capable of betraying his stepfather, the king, and his mother, the queen consort, in such a devastating way? As she drove back to London through the gathering darkness, Sarah realized she was about to discover truths that would change the royal family forever. The investigation had only just begun, but already she could sense that nothing would ever be the same once the full story came to light. Sarah spent the evening in her flat, studying everything she could find about Tom Parker Bowles. Unlike other royal family members, he had maintained a relatively normal public profile. A successful food writer, television presenter, and author, he seemed to have carved out his own identity separate from royal duties. His social media showed a man who enjoyed fine dining, travel, and spending time with his children from his previous marriage. But as Sarah dug deeper, she began to notice inconsistencies. Financial records showed his lifestyle expenses far exceeded his known income sources. High-end restaurants, luxury hotels, first-class flights, and expensive gifts for friends and family painted a picture of someone living beyond his means. Her secure phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock. Commander Harrison's voice was tense. "Inspector, we have a development. One of our surveillance teams monitoring Parker Bowles reported unusual activity at his London residence tonight. Several individuals arrived separately, all driving expensive cars, and they've been inside for over 3 hours. Any idea who they are?" Sarah asked, grabbing her notebook. "We managed to identify 2 of them through license plate checks. Markus Volkov, a Russian businessman with suspected ties to money laundering operations, and Chen Wei-ming, a Hong Kong art dealer who's been flagged by Interpol for trafficking stolen artifacts. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. That's not a social dinner party. Agreed. We can't get close enough to hear what they're discussing, but the fact that Parker Bowles is meeting with known criminals suggests our investigation is on the right track. After ending the call, Sarah decided she couldn't wait until morning to continue her investigation. She drove to the private airfield, using her royal credentials to gain access after hours. The security guard, clearly uncomfortable but unable to refuse someone with such high-level authorization, let her into the hangar. Working alone under the aircraft's harsh inspection lights, Sarah conducted a more thorough examination than had been possible during the day. She crawled through every compartment, checked every panel, and examined every surface for clues. In a small storage area behind the passenger seats, she discovered something the initial inspection had missed. Hidden beneath a removable floor panel was a custom-built compartment, lined with foam padding and equipped with temperature and humidity controls. The space was empty now, but the dimensions were perfect for storing valuable items that needed protection during transport. Sarah photographed the compartment from every angle, noting that the foam showed impressions from objects that had been stored there recently. The shapes were consistent with jewelry boxes and small display cases, exactly what would be needed to transport stolen crown jewels safely. Her phone vibrated with another anonymous message. Check the maintenance records for February 15th. Someone paid extra to have the work done off books. This time, Sarah didn't delete the message immediately. Someone was definitely helping her, providing inside information that would be impossible to obtain through normal channels. But who was it, and what was their motivation? She located the aircraft maintenance office and, using her royal warrant, demanded to see all records related to Parker Bowles' jet. The night supervisor, clearly unhappy about being roused from his quarters, grudgingly provided access to the files. The maintenance records for February 15th showed routine engine service, but there was an additional entry that caught Sarah's attention. An interior modification had been performed by a private contractor, billed separately, and paid for in cash. The work order was vague, listing only custom storage installation with no further details. Sarah copied the contractor's information and made a note to visit them first thing in the morning. She was building a compelling case, but she needed more concrete evidence before she could approach Parker Bowles directly. The next morning brought more troubling news. Lady Ashworth called Sarah at 7 a.m. with an update that sent chills down her spine. "Inspector, we've had a security breach. Someone attempted to access the Tower of London's computer systems last night, specifically targeting the Crown Jewels inventory database. The attempt was unsuccessful, but our IT security team believes it originated from a location in central London." "Any idea who was behind it?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. "The digital forensics team is working on it, but initial analysis suggests the attack came from someone with insider knowledge of our security protocols. This wasn't a random hacker, Inspector. This was someone who knew exactly what they were looking for." Sarah felt the urgency of the situation escalating. "Lady Ashworth, I need you to arrange interviews with everyone who had access to the Crown Jewels inventory system over the past month. And I need those interviews to happen today. Consider it done." "But, Inspector, there's something else. King Charles has been asking questions about increased security activity. He hasn't been briefed on the theft yet, but his private secretary is becoming suspicious. We're running out of time to conduct this investigation quietly." After ending the call, Sarah drove to the address listed for the contractor who had modified Parker Bowles' aircraft. The business, called Precision Aviation Interiors, was located in an industrial area of London. The building looked legitimate, but Sarah's detective instincts told her something was off. The receptionist, a young woman with nervous eyes, claimed that the owner, David Morrison, was traveling and wouldn't be back for several days. However, Sarah noticed a man's jacket hanging on a chair behind the desk and could hear voices coming from the back office. "I'd like to speak with whoever is in charge today," Sarah said, presenting her royal warrant. "This is a matter of national security." The receptionist's face went pale. She made a brief phone call, speaking in hushed tones, before leading Sarah to a back office where a middle-aged man with calloused hands was hastily organizing papers. "David Morrison," he said, extending his hand with obvious reluctance. "How can I help you, Inspector?" Sarah showed him photographs of the hidden compartment she had discovered in Parker Bowles' jet. "Tell me about this modification." Morrison's face betrayed nothing, but Sarah noticed his hands trembling slightly as he examined the photos. "Standard storage upgrade. Nothing unusual about it. The work order says it was paid for in cash." "That's unusual, isn't it? Some clients prefer cash transactions." "Privacy reasons." Sarah leaned forward, using the interview technique that had served her well for years. "Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be very clear with you. This investigation involves the highest levels of national security. If you're hiding something, now is the time to tell me. Protecting someone who has committed treason against the crown won't end well for you." The word treason had the desired effect. Morrison's composure cracked, and he slumped in his chair. "Look, Inspector, I didn't know what it was really for. Parker Bowles came to me personally, paid triple my usual rate, and asked for a discreet storage compartment that could protect valuable items during flight. He said it was for transporting artwork for charity auctions." "Did he specify the dimensions?" Sarah asked. "He brought templates with him, exact measurements for the items that needed to fit. I thought it was odd at the time, but the money was good, and I assumed it was legitimate." Sarah felt a surge of excitement. This was the breakthrough she needed. "Do you still have those templates?" Morrison hesitated, then walked to a filing cabinet and withdrew a folder. Inside were detailed measurements and sketches that corresponded exactly to the dimensions of several pieces in the crown jewels collection. "Mr. Morrison, I need you to come with me to make an official statement. And I need copies of all documents related to this work, including any communications you had with Parker Bowles." As they prepared to leave, Morrison stopped suddenly. "Inspector, there's something else you should know. Parker Bowles wasn't working alone. There was a woman with him when he came to discuss the modifications. Well-dressed, spoke with an upper-class accent. She seemed to know a lot about security systems." "Can you describe her?" "Mid-40s, blonde hair, expensive jewelry. She was very specific about the timing of the work and insisted that no records be kept in our regular files. Said it was for confidentiality reasons related to the royal family." Sarah felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. This wasn't just about Parker Bowles and gambling debts. Someone else was involved, someone with intimate knowledge of royal security procedures and access to sensitive information. Her phone rang as they were leaving Morrison's office. Commander Harrison's voice was urgent. "Inspector, we need to meet immediately. We've had another development, and it changes everything we thought we knew about this case." "What kind of development?" "We've discovered that Tom Parker Bowles was in Scotland on the day the theft occurred. He has alibi witnesses, restaurant receipts, and hotel records proving he was nowhere near London when the crown jewels were stolen." Sarah felt her carefully constructed case beginning to unravel. If Parker Bowles wasn't in London during the theft, then either he wasn't the thief or he had accomplices who carried out the actual crime while he established his alibi. "Commander, we need to expand this investigation immediately. We're not dealing with a lone actor here. This is a conspiracy involving multiple people, and at least one of them has high-level access to royal security information." "How high level are we talking about, Inspector?" Sarah looked at the evidence she had gathered, thinking about the insider knowledge required to pull off such a sophisticated theft. "High enough that we may need to start questioning people within the royal household itself." The silence on the other end of the line told her that Commander Harrison had reached the same conclusion. This investigation was about to become exponentially more complex and dangerous. As Sarah drove back towards central London with David Morrison in her passenger seat, she realized she was no longer just investigating the theft of the crown jewels. She was uncovering a conspiracy that reached into the very heart of the royal family, and the people responsible would do anything to keep their secrets hidden. Her anonymous helper sent another message. The woman Morrison described works inside Buckingham Palace. Check the household staff records for someone matching that description who had access to security protocols. This time, the message came with a photograph. A blurry image of a woman in expensive clothing entering a building that Sarah recognized as Parker Bowles' London residence. The timestamp showed it was taken just 3 days ago. Sarah stared at the image, her mind racing through the implications. Someone inside Buckingham Palace was feeding information to the thieves, and that same person was still in contact with Parker Bowles. The theft of the crown jewels was just the beginning. This conspiracy went much deeper than anyone had imagined. The question now was whether Sarah could uncover the truth before the conspirators realized how close she was to exposing them. With each new piece of evidence, the stakes grew higher, and the danger to both herself and the monarchy increased exponentially. Time was running out, and Sarah knew that her next move would determine whether she could save the crown jewels and protect the royal family, or whether she would become another casualty of a conspiracy that threatened to destroy centuries of British tradition. Sarah arrived at the secure meeting location with David Morrison's statement and the evidence from Precision Aviation Interiors. Commander Harrison was waiting with Lady Ashworth and Major Whitfield, but their expressions were grimmer than she had ever seen them. Inspector, Lady Ashworth began without preamble. We have identified the woman in the photograph your anonymous source provided. Her name is Patricia Henworth, and she's been working in the royal household for 12 years as assistant private secretary to Queen Camilla. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Patricia Henworth would have had access to the most sensitive information about royal security protocols, schedules, and procedures. She would have known exactly when the crown jewels would be vulnerable and how to bypass the security systems of the Tower of London. What's her background? Sarah asked, settling in her chair and opening her notebook. Major Whitfield consulted his tablet. Oxford education, impeccable references, and a spotless record until recently. However, our financial investigation uncovered some troubling patterns. She's been living well beyond her government salary for the past year, with unexplained deposits totaling over £200,000. Where did the money come from? That's the interesting part, Commander Harrison said. The deposits were made through a series of offshore shell companies, but we traced them back to accounts controlled by Markus Volkov, the same Russian businessman who was seen meeting with Parker Bowles. Sarah felt the pieces of the conspiracy falling into place. So Henworth provides inside information about royal security, Parker Bowles provides the transportation and storage, and Volkov provides the funding and international connections to sell the stolen jewels. It appears that way, Lady Ashworth confirmed. But there's more. We've discovered that Patricia Henworth has been in contact with several international art dealers and private collectors over the past month. She's been using her royal household credentials to make inquiries about selling estate jewelry on behalf of anonymous clients. Have you confronted her yet? That's where things become complicated, Major Whitfield said. Patricia Henworth didn't show up for work yesterday or today. Her apartment appears to have been hastily abandoned, and her passport is missing from her personal effects. Sarah cursed under her breath. She's run. How long has she been gone? We estimate she left sometime after Parker Bowles' meeting with Volkov and Chen Wei-ming. Someone must have warned her that we were getting close. The anonymous messages Sarah had been receiving suddenly made more sense. Someone inside the royal household was aware of the investigation and was trying to help her, but they were also inadvertently alerting the conspirators to the progress being made. Commander, Sarah said, we need to assume that our investigation is compromised. If Henworth has fled, she's probably already contacted her co-conspirators to warn them. They might try to dispose of evidence or even leave the country themselves. Already considered, Harrison replied. We have surveillance teams monitoring Parker Bowles, and Volkov is being watched by MI5. But we still need to recover the stolen crown jewels before they disappear permanently into private collections or are broken down for individual gems. Lady Ashworth opened a new file and spread several photographs across the table. Inspector, these are surveillance photos taken at various London locations over the past week. We've identified at least 6 individuals who appear to be connected to this conspiracy. Sarah examined the photos, noting that several faces were unfamiliar to her. The conspiracy was larger than she had initially suspected, involving not just Parker Bowles and Hensworth, but a network of criminals with international connections. "Who are these people?" she asked, pointing to a photograph of 2 men in expensive suits meeting at a high-end restaurant. The man on the left is Jonathan Fairweather, a London art dealer who specializes in discreet acquisitions for wealthy collectors. The man on the right is Alessandro Conti, an Italian who facilitates the movement of valuable items across international borders without proper documentation. Major Whitfield pointed to another photograph. "This woman is Dr. Elizabeth Sharp, a gemologist who has been known to provide false authenticity certificates for stolen jewelry. And this man is Thomas Chun, brother of the Hong Kong art dealer we mentioned earlier." They've built a complete pipeline, Sarah realized. Hensworth provides the inside information, Parker Bowles handles transportation, Volkov provides funding, and this network of dealers and specialists handles the sale and distribution of the stolen items. "The question now," Commander Harrison said, "is where are the crown jewels currently located, and can we recover them before they're sold or leave the country permanently?" Sarah studied the evidence she had gathered, thinking through the timeline of events. The theft occurred 5 days ago, but Parker Bowles' jet flew to Geneva 3 days ago. If they transported the jewels on that flight, they could already be in Swiss bank vaults or private collections. "That's our worst-case scenario," Lady Ashworth agreed. "Swiss banking privacy laws would make it nearly impossible to trace the items once they enter that system." Sarah's phone buzzed with another anonymous message. "The jewels never left London. Check the storage facilities registered to Fairweather's gallery. Building 7, Unit 23. This time, the message included an address in East London and what appeared to be security camera footage showing someone moving large, carefully wrapped packages into a storage facility. "We have a lead," Sarah announced, showing the others the message and video footage. "My anonymous source says the crown jewels are still in London, hidden in a storage facility connected to Fairweather's art gallery." Commander Harrison studied the footage carefully. "That looks like Fairweather himself, and those packages are the right size and shape for jewelry transport cases." "It could be a trap," Major Whitfield warned. "If the conspirators know we're getting close, they might be trying to lure us into a situation where they can eliminate the investigation team." Sarah considered the risks, but her detective instincts told her the lead was genuine. "We don't have a choice. If the crown jewels are really there, this might be our only chance to recover them before they disappear forever." Lady Ashworth made a phone call to authorize the operation, speaking in coded language to various security officials. Within an hour, Sarah found herself part of a joint operation involving Scotland Yard, Royal Protection Officers, and MI5 agents. The storage facility was located in a converted warehouse in East London, surrounded by similar industrial buildings that provided perfect cover for the operation. Sarah watched from an unmarked van as surveillance teams confirmed that the building was currently occupied by at least 3 individuals. Inspector Harrison's voice came through her earpiece. "We've identified Jonathan Fairweather and Alessandro Conti inside the facility. The third person appears to be Thomas Chun. They seem to be preparing to move something." Through high-power binoculars, Sarah could see activity inside the storage unit. Large cases were being loaded onto a truck, and the urgency of the movement suggested that the conspirators knew time was running out. "They're moving the jewels," she reported. "We need to intercept them before they leave the facility." The operation moved with military precision. Armed officers surrounded the building while Sarah and her team approached the storage unit directly. As they breached the entrance, they found exactly what they were looking for. 3 wooden crates sat open on tables, their contents glittering under the harsh fluorescent lights. The Queen Mother's emerald tiara, the diamond Riviere necklace, and the Duchess of Cambridge brooch were all there, along with several other pieces from the crown jewels collection that hadn't been reported missing. Fairweather, Conti, and Chun were arrested without resistance, though their expressions showed more resignation than surprise. They had been expecting this moment, which suggested that they knew their conspiracy had been compromised. "Where are the others?" Sarah demanded, looking directly at Fairweather. "Where are Parker Bowles and Patricia Hensworth?" Fairweather remained silent, but Chen seemed more willing to cooperate. Parker Bowles never knew about this facility. He thought the jewels were already in Geneva. Hensworth disappeared 2 days ago. None of us have heard from her since. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and frustration. They had recovered the crown jewels, but the key conspirators were still at large, and the full extent of the plot remained unclear. As the stolen treasures were carefully packed for return to the Tower of London, Sarah received another anonymous message. This was just the beginning. Check Hensworth's personal computer files. She copied more than security protocols before she disappeared. The implication was chilling. If Patricia Hensworth had stolen additional classified information about royal security procedures, she could potentially orchestrate even more devastating attacks against the monarchy. The recovery of the crown jewels might have been just the first phase of a larger, more dangerous conspiracy. Major Whitfield approached Sarah as the last of the evidence was being catalogued. "Inspector, preliminary interrogation of the suspects suggests that this theft was commissioned by a private collector who specifically wanted these pieces from the royal collection. We may be dealing with someone who has a personal grudge against the royal family." "Any idea who?" Sarah asked. Chen mentioned a name before his lawyer arrived, Victoria Ashworth. "But that's impossible, since Lady Ashworth is leading this investigation." Sarah felt her blood run cold. Lady Victoria Ashworth, the representative of the royal household who had been briefing her throughout the investigation, sharing sensitive information and guiding her efforts to recover the stolen crown jewels. "Major," Sarah said carefully, "I need you to run a complete background check on Lady Ashworth immediately. Something doesn't add up here." As the realization dawned that she might have been manipulated by one of the very people she was supposed to trust, Sarah understood that this case was far from over. The recovery of the crown jewels was just the beginning of uncovering a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the royal household itself. The question now was whether Lady Ashworth was an innocent victim whose identity was being used by the criminals, or whether she was the mastermind behind the entire operation. Either way, Sarah realized she was no longer sure who she could trust in an investigation that seemed to grow more complex and dangerous with each new revelation. Her anonymous helper had been right from the beginning. Not everything was as it seemed, and the people closest to the investigation might be the most dangerous of all. Sarah spent the night in a secure, safe house, her mind racing with the implications of Chen's revelation about Victoria Ashworth. The background check Major Whitfield had conducted revealed disturbing inconsistencies in Lady Ashworth's credentials and history that had somehow been overlooked during her initial security clearance. The real Victoria Ashworth had died in a car accident in Switzerland 3 years earlier. The woman who had been briefing Sarah throughout the investigation was an imposter who had assumed her identity with remarkable skill and attention to detail. More troubling still, the false Lady Ashworth had access to genuine royal household credentials and security clearances that would have required inside help to obtain. Commander Harrison called at dawn with updates that made the situation even more complex. "Inspector, we've discovered that the woman posing as Lady Ashworth has been systematically copying classified files from the royal household computer systems for over 2 years. Financial records, security protocols, personal schedules of royal family members, and detailed architectural plans of royal residences. How did she manage to maintain the deception for so long?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. She had help from Patricia Hensworth, who provided her with inside information about royal household procedures and personnel. "But we think there are others involved as well, people in positions of trust who have been compromised or coerced." Sarah felt the scope of the conspiracy expanding beyond anything she had imagined. "Commander, we're not just dealing with the theft of the crown jewels anymore. This is a systematic infiltration of the royal household by foreign agents or criminals with a much larger agenda." "Agreed. MI5 has taken over the broader security investigation, but they want you to continue pursuing the immediate threat posed by the imposter and her remaining accomplices. After the call, Sarah reviewed everything she knew about the fake Lady Ashworth, looking for clues about her real identity and motivations. The woman had been remarkably well prepared, with detailed knowledge of royal protocols and an upper-class accent that suggested extensive training or a genuine aristocratic background. Her phone buzzed with a message from her anonymous helper. The woman you know as Lady Ashworth is actually Elena Volkov, sister of Marcus Volkov. She's a trained intelligence operative who specializes in long-term infiltration operations. Check the passenger manifest for flights from Moscow to London in 2022. This revelation connected the final pieces of the puzzle. The entire operation had been planned and executed by the Volkov siblings, Marcus providing the criminal network and financing, while Elena infiltrated the royal household to gather intelligence and identify vulnerabilities. Sarah immediately called Commander Harrison with this information. "Commander, we need to assume that Elena Volkov knows about every aspect of our investigation. She's been present at all our briefings and has access to all our intelligence. We're completely compromised. How do we proceed?" Harrison asked. "If she knows we've identified her, she'll either flee the country or attempt to eliminate the evidence of her involvement. We need to set a trap," Sarah decided. "Give her false information about our next move and see if she takes the bait. If we can predict her actions, we might be able to capture her before she disappears." Working with Harrison and Major Whitfield, Sarah developed a plan to feed Elena Volkov false information through channels they believed she was monitoring. They would pretend to have discovered evidence that the crown jewels had been moved to a secure facility outside London, hoping to draw her into attempting one final theft. Meanwhile, Sarah began her own investigation into Elena Volkov's background, using resources that the imposter wouldn't know about. She discovered that Elena had been trained by Russian intelligence services before going freelance as a specialist in corporate and government infiltration. Her previous operations had targeted technology companies, defense contractors, and government agencies across Europe and North America. The royal household infiltration was her most ambitious operation to date, suggesting that someone with significant resources had commissioned her services specifically to target the British monarchy. Sarah's secure phone rang with a call from an encrypted number she didn't recognize. When she answered, a woman's voice spoke with the familiar upper-class accent she had come to associate with Lady Ashworth. "Inspector Matthews, I believe we should meet to discuss the situation we find ourselves in." "Elena Volkov, I presume," Sarah replied, her heart racing but her voice steady. "Very good, Inspector. You've been more thorough than I expected. I'm calling to propose an exchange of information that could be mutually beneficial. I'm not interested in making deals with criminals. Perhaps you should reconsider. I have information about a much larger threat to the royal family than the simple theft of some jewelry. There are people who want to do far more damage than stealing a few baubles from the Tower of London." Sarah hesitated. Was this another manipulation, or was Elena Volkov genuinely offering intelligence about additional threats to the monarchy? What kind of threat? Sarah asked carefully. The kind that could result in the violent deaths of senior royal family members. The theft of the crown jewels was just a test run, Inspector. A way to evaluate security vulnerabilities for a much more serious operation. The line went quiet for a moment before Elena continued. "I'm prepared to provide you with detailed information about this plot, including the names of the people involved and their timeline for action. In exchange, I want immunity from prosecution and safe passage out of the country." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. If Elena was telling the truth, then the theft of the crown jewels was just the beginning of a much more dangerous conspiracy. But could she trust the word of someone who had spent years deceiving everyone around her? "I need proof," Sarah said finally. "Give me something concrete that demonstrates you're telling the truth." Check your email in 10 minutes. You'll find surveillance footage of a meeting that took place yesterday between individuals you haven't identified yet. They're planning something that will happen during the King's upcoming public appearance at the opening of Parliament. The call ended, leaving Sarah staring at her phone in confusion and concern. The state opening of Parliament was scheduled for the following week, an event that would bring together the entire royal family in a single location with thousands of spectators and international media coverage. 10 minutes later, Sarah's secure email contained a video file that made her blood run cold. The footage showed 6 men in expensive suits meeting in what appeared to be a private club or restaurant. She recognized 2 of them from previous surveillance photos, but the others were unfamiliar faces who appeared to be discussing detailed plans while examining architectural drawings and photographs. The audio was too poor to make out specific words, but the serious expressions and intense gestures suggested they were planning something significant and dangerous. One man was repeatedly pointing to photographs of Westminster Palace and the route the royal procession would take during the ceremonial opening. Sarah immediately forwarded the video to Commander Harrison and Major Whitfield, then called to arrange an emergency briefing. If Elena Volkov was telling the truth about an assassination plot targeting the state opening of Parliament, they had less than a week to identify and neutralize the threat. When the security team assembled an hour later, the atmosphere was even more tense than it had been during the initial briefing about the stolen crown jewels. The implications of what they were potentially facing had escalated far beyond theft to the possibility of regicide and the destruction of the British constitutional system. The audio analysis team has been working on the video, Major Whitfield reported. They've managed to enhance several sections where the conspirators are discussing their plans. The words explosive device, royal carriage, and simultaneous attack are clearly audible. How many targets are they planning to hit? Sarah asked. From what we could determine, they're planning multiple coordinated attacks during the ceremony. The royal carriage, Westminster Palace itself, and possibly the crowds of spectators. The goal appears to be maximum casualties and the complete destruction of the monarchy as a functional institution. Commander Harrison spread new intelligence reports across the table. MI5 has identified 3 of the previously unknown conspirators from the video. They're all foreign nationals with expertise in explosives and military operations. This isn't a domestic criminal conspiracy, Inspector. This is a sophisticated international terrorist operation. Sarah studied the photographs of the newly identified suspects, noting their professional appearance and confident bearing. These weren't desperate criminals looking for quick money. They were trained operatives with the skills and resources to carry out a devastating attack on the heart of the British government. What do we know about who's funding this operation? Sarah asked. That's where things become even more concerning, Major Whitfield replied. Financial intelligence suggests the funding is coming from multiple sources, including state actors who would benefit from the collapse of the British monarchy and the resulting political chaos. The briefing continued for another 2 hours, as the security team tried to piece together the full scope of the conspiracy and identify all the potential threats. Sarah found herself at the center of an investigation that had grown from a simple theft case to a matter of national survival. As the meeting concluded, Sarah realized she faced an impossible decision. Elena Volkov was offering crucial intelligence that could prevent a catastrophic attack, but accepting her deal would mean allowing a dangerous criminal to escape justice. On the other hand, rejecting her offer might result in the deaths of the royal family and the destruction of an institution that had anchored British society for centuries. Her secure phone rang again as she was leaving the briefing room. Elena Volkov's voice was more urgent this time. Inspector, you've seen the video. You know I'm telling the truth about the threat. But there's something else you need to understand. The attack is scheduled for tomorrow, not next week. They moved up the timeline because they know you're getting close to uncovering their operation. Sarah felt her heart stop. Tomorrow? But the state opening isn't until next week. They're not targeting the official ceremony. They're targeting the king's private visit to the Veterans Hospital tomorrow morning. Smaller security detail, predictable route, and the perfect opportunity to eliminate the monarch without the complexity of attacking Westminster Palace. The line went dead. leaving Sarah with the terrifying realization that she had less than 18 hours to prevent the assassination of King Charles III. The stakes had escalated beyond anything she had ever imagined, and the fate of the monarchy now rested in her hands. Sarah's call to Commander Harrison triggered the most comprehensive security response in recent British history. Within minutes, every available resource from Scotland Yard, MI5, MI6, and the Royal Protection Unit was mobilized to prevent the assassination attempt on King Charles III. The Emergency Command Center was established in a secure facility beneath Westminster, where Sarah found herself at the center of a complex operation involving dozens of agents, analysts, and tactical specialists. The clock on the wall showed 11:47 p.m., giving them less than 12 hours before the King's scheduled visit to the Veterans Hospital. Major Whitfield had Elena Volkov's intelligence verified through multiple independent sources, confirming that the threat was genuine and immediate. The surveillance footage from a restaurant meeting had been enhanced further, revealing that the conspirators possessed detailed architectural plans of the hospital and real-time intelligence about the royal security protocols. Inspector Commander Harrison said, approaching Sarah's workstation, "We've confirmed Elena Volkov's information about the timing and location. The King's visit is scheduled for 10:30 a.m., with a motorcade route that passes through 3 potential ambush sites. We also discovered that one of the hospital's maintenance workers has been replaced by an imposter within the past week." Sarah studied the route maps, and hospital floor plans spread across her desk. They've been planning this for months, haven't they? The theft of the crown jewels was just a way to test our response capabilities and identify weaknesses in royal security. That's our assessment, Harrison confirmed. Elena Volkov and her associates used the jewelry theft to study how quickly we could mobilize resources, how effectively we could coordinate between agencies, and what information we had access to during a crisis. The tactical team leader, Commander Sarah Walsh from the SAS, joined their discussion. "Inspector, we've identified at least 6 potential attack points along the motorcade route, plus the hospital itself. The conspirators appear to have positioned assets at multiple locations to ensure the assassination succeeds, even if we neutralize some of their operatives." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The investigation that had begun with missing jewelry had evolved into preventing regicide, and every decision she made in the next few hours could determine the survival of the British monarchy. Her secure phone buzzed with another message from Elena Volkov. "The hospital's head of security, James Patterson, has been compromised. He's been feeding information to the conspirators and will disable key security systems during the royal visit. You have 40 minutes before he starts his shift. We need to arrest Patterson immediately," Sarah announced, showing the message to the command team. If Elena's right, he could compromise the entire hospital security system. Commander Walsh dispatched a tactical team to Patterson's residence while Sarah coordinated with hospital administrators to verify Elena's intelligence. Within 30 minutes, they had confirmed that Patterson had indeed been receiving payments from offshore accounts controlled by the conspiracy and had made several unauthorized modifications to the hospital security systems. The arrest of Patterson yielded a treasure trove of intelligence about the assassination plot. Under interrogation, he revealed that the conspirators had positioned snipers in buildings overlooking the motorcade route, planted explosive devices in the hospital's parking garage, and recruited several hospital staff members to facilitate access to restricted areas. Inspector Matthews, Patterson said during his interrogation, his composure cracking under the pressure, "You don't understand the scope of what you're dealing with. This operation has been in development for over 3 years, with funding and support from multiple international sources. Who's really behind this?" Sarah demanded. "Who wanted the king dead badly enough to invest 3 years and millions of pounds in this operation?" Patterson looked genuinely frightened as he answered. "Only know code names and offshore accounts. But the people funding this operation have resources that rival those of nation-states. They've been systematically infiltrating royal security, government agencies, and private contractors for years." Sarah realized that even if they prevented the immediate assassination attempt, the underlying conspiracy would continue to pose a threat to the royal family and British institutions. The network of compromised individuals and foreign agents would need to be systematically identified and eliminated. Commander Harrison approached with an update that complicated their situation further. Inspector, we've discovered that Elena Volkov has been in contact with Russian intelligence services throughout this operation. MI6 believes she's playing multiple sides, providing information to us while potentially serving Russian interests. Are you saying we can't trust her intelligence about the assassination plot? Sarah asked. We can't trust her motivations, but the intelligence itself appears to be accurate. She may be trying to prevent the assassination for reasons that have nothing to do with protecting the king. Perhaps because the operation's failure would be more beneficial to Russian interests than its success. The complexity of international intelligence operations was beyond Sarah's expertise as a domestic detective, but she understood that Elena Volkov's assistance came with hidden costs and ulterior motives. Whatever her reasons, the information she provided was their best chance of preventing regicide. At 3 a.m., the decision was made to proceed with the king's hospital visit, but with unprecedented security measures. The Royal Protection Unit would be supplemented by SAS operatives, MI5 surveillance teams, and specialized bomb disposal experts. The hospital would be swept multiple times for explosive devices, and alternative routes would be prepared in case the primary motorcade route was compromised. Sarah found herself assigned to the command vehicle that would follow the royal motorcade, coordinating real-time intelligence and tactical responses. As dawn broke over London, she reviewed the final security arrangements and tried to anticipate what might go wrong. Her phone rang with a call from Elena Volkov, just as the royal motorcade was preparing to depart from Buckingham Palace. Inspector, there's one more thing you need to know. My brother Marcus is not in London, as you've assumed. He's been in Belfast for the past week, coordinating with dissident Republican groups who want to use the king's assassination to reignite sectarian violence in Northern Ireland. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Are you saying this assassination attempt is designed to trigger a broader conflict? The people funding this operation don't just want the king dead, Inspector. They want the United Kingdom to tear itself apart in the aftermath. The assassination is just the first phase of a plan to destabilize British society and potentially break up the union between England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The implications were staggering. Sarah immediately relayed this information to the command center, knowing that preventing the king's assassination was now even more critical to preventing a national catastrophe. The royal motorcade departed Buckingham Palace at exactly 10:15 a.m., following a route that had been modified 3 times during the night to avoid known ambush sites. Sarah watched the live feed from surveillance cameras as the convoy made its way through London streets lined with additional police and security personnel. Everything proceeded normally until the motorcade reached the final intersection before the hospital. Sarah's earpiece crackled with urgent reports from surveillance teams positioned along the route. Command, this is Observation Post 3. We have movement in the building at coordinates 51.5074, negative 0.1278. Multiple individuals with long-range equipment. Confirmed, came another voice. Observation Post 7 reports similar activity. At least 4 potential sniper positions have been activated simultaneously. Commander Walsh's voice came through the command frequency. All units, implement code red protocols immediately. We have multiple hostile contacts in overwatch positions. The royal motorcade suddenly accelerated, taking evasive action as tactical teams moved to neutralize the sniper positions. Sarah watched in horror as the conspiracy's true scope became apparent. They had positioned assets in more locations than intelligence had indicated, creating overlapping fields of fire that would be nearly impossible to avoid. Inspector, Elena Volkov's voice came through Sarah's phone one final time. There's something I never told you. The real target isn't the king's motorcade. It's the hospital itself. They're going to detonate the building while you're all focused on the external threats. Sarah screamed into her radio. The hospital is the target. Evacuate the building immediately. All units converge on the hospital. As tactical teams stormed into the Veterans Hospital, they discovered a sophisticated explosive device in the basement that would have brought down the entire structure. The bomb was disabled with less than 5 minutes remaining on its timer, preventing a catastrophe that would have killed hundreds of patients, staff, and security personnel. The arrests that followed over the next several days rolled up an international conspiracy involving over 30 individuals across 6 countries. Markus Volkov was apprehended in Belfast along with several accomplices, while Elena Volkov disappeared entirely, presumably with the assistance of Russian intelligence services. Tom Parker Bowles was ultimately cleared of any involvement in the theft of the crown jewels, having been manipulated by Patricia Hensworth and Elena Volkov without understanding the true nature of their activities. The modifications to his aircraft had been part of an elaborate deception designed to implicate him in the jewelry theft while diverting attention from the assassination plot. As Sarah sat in her office 2 weeks later, writing the final report on the most complex case of her career, she reflected on how close they had come to a national disaster. The theft of the crown jewels had been just the beginning of a conspiracy that could have destroyed the British monarchy and triggered widespread civil unrest. Her phone buzzed with one final anonymous message. "Thank you for saving the king. Sometimes the right thing to do requires betraying the wrong people." A friend. Sarah realized that her anonymous helper throughout the investigation had probably been someone within the conspiracy who had developed second thoughts about the assassination plot. Whether motivated by conscience, competing loyalties, or other factors she would never know, that person's information had been crucial to preventing regicide. The crown jewels were returned to their secure display at the Tower of London, where they would continue to symbolize the continuity and stability of the British monarchy. But Sarah knew that the underlying threats to the royal family and democratic institutions would continue, requiring constant vigilance and the dedication of people willing to risk everything to protect the values and traditions that defined British society. King Charles III continued his public duties, though with enhanced security measures that reflected the new reality of sophisticated international threats to the monarchy. The investigation had exposed vulnerabilities in royal security that would take years to fully address, but it had also demonstrated the effectiveness of British intelligence and law enforcement agencies when they worked together against common threats. As Sarah closed the file on the case that had defined her career, she understood that she had been part of something much larger than a criminal investigation. She had helped preserve an institution that connected present-day Britain to centuries of history and tradition, ensuring that future generations would inherit the same stable democracy that had weathered countless previous storms. The mystery of the crown jewels theft had been solved, but the larger questions about loyalty, duty, and the price of protecting national institutions would continue to challenge everyone who swore an oath to serve the crown. Sarah had learned that sometimes the most dangerous threats came from within, and that preserving democracy required the courage to question even those in positions of ultimate trust and authority. In the end, the investigation had saved not just the crown jewels, but the crown itself, and with it the constitutional monarchy that served as the foundation of British political stability. It was a responsibility that Sarah would carry with her for the rest of her life, knowing that she had played a crucial role in one of the most important security operations in modern British history.